Greetings and welcome to the Fan Perspective. I'm your host Nathan Lyle, and this is NBA Weekly, the show where once a week I talk about things that happened last week in the association and things that I'm looking forward to in the coming week. First of all, the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves have both extended their losing streaks to 14 in a row. And then let's talk about the Cavs. They've been relatively disappointing this season, but I'm going to harken back to the argument I had before about the Knicks and how it's not really that they're bad. It's just that they're so overhyped. The expectations will just place so incredibly high, so unrealistically high, and so anything else, even mediocrity, which is good compared to what the Cavs have been since they're actually in the playoff race right now, that's considered, a huge disappointment because, people are putting championship expectations on them, which is a little too much to ask of a new team. But, they're trying to live up to those expectations. There was a 3-team trade where they sent Dion Waiters to the Thunder, and they received J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert from the Knicks. And apparently the Knicks, they're getting some backups from the Thunder, who they just waived immediately. And the Knicks, this move is mostly just to clear some cap space. And the Cavs, they traded away 2 first-round draft picks into Denver in exchange for Timofey Mozgov, who, there's a legitimate possibility that nobody watching this show, nobody looking at this video, will recognize that name. And I don't blame you. He's not necessarily, an amazing player. He's nowhere near the best center in the league, but he's a good, consistent presence on the floor. Especially with Anderson Varejao out for the rest of the season. He's a guy that can make them better. And he's better than anything else they've got on the roster right now. And in the Eastern Conference, while everyone keeps talking about the Cavs, the team you really need to pay attention to, if you haven't already, the Atlanta Hawks. They are currently on a 7-game winning streak, and with some help from a 4-game losing streak by Toronto, the Hawks have shot their way into that first place in the East, and the key to their victory seems to be the system, because I still have not actually sat there and watched an entire game. I've only ever looked at their stat sheets and a few highlights here and there. But it appears to be that the key to their success is the fact that they work as a team. The sum of their whole is greater than the sum of their parts. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah, they're being called the Spurs of the East, which is no surprise, seeing as how their Coach Bud, he used to work for Greg Popovich, and learned the system from him. So it seems to be working. And then the Rondo trade seems to have worked well. The Mavs, they've been pretty well lately. They had the longest active winning streak in a row at 6 straight victories. But it stopped at 6 because the Pistons, they were undefeated since getting rid of Josh Smith. And they got 7 straight victories together before falling to the Hawks yesterday. And I think the Pistons, they're really only a couple of games out of the playoffs right now. It still seems like a relative long shot, but the East is weak enough that if they can keep consistently playing well, because they lost to the Hawks, number 1 in the Eastern Conference, in contention for number 1 overall, and they only lost to them by 3 points. Whatever they're doing now, it seems to be working. And they're starting to beat some really good teams now. They beat the Spurs, they beat the Mavs, they went head-to-head with the Hawks. This is a team worth paying more attention to. And then a few games to look forward to this coming week. On Saturday, they got the Mavs at the Clippers. It's an early game, so you have something to warm you up before you get to the NFL playoffs. And lots of great individual matchups. You got Rondo versus CP3, Dirk versus Blake, Jordan versus Chandler. Will the Mavs be able to rebound from a tough loss, or will the Clippers grab a statement win, against a strong Western Conference team? Because the Clippers, they haven't really been playing amazing this season. There are a lot of doubts about how well they can actually finish the year. And then in the Eastern Conference, you've got the Nets at the Pistons. Detroit has showed a lot of dominance recently and are fighting to get into playoff position, while the Nets, They've been a 500 team all year, but they're still clinging to that very bottom of the playoffs. So they're teetering right on the edge, though. It wouldn't take too much to knock them out of it. And then on Sunday, you've got the Wizards at the Hawks, two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. You should expect a battle. You've also got Phoenix at Memphis. Phoenix struggling lately. Memphis has been somewhat struggling lately, but Zebo came back. So they're getting healthier. That's a good sign. Phoenix, they were on a 4-game winning streak, though they did lose last night. It was to the Spurs, though. So give them credit for that. This one, it might be a fun game to look at. Monday, you've got the Pistons at the Raptors. Raptors, 4-game losing streak. Pistons, formerly a 7-game winning streak. Once again, they lost to the Hawks, so give them some credit for that. I think there's a good chance that they'll be able to at least compete against the Raptors. We'll see. So we'll see if the trend continues. Will the Raptors be able to turn this around, start getting some wins, and will Detroit, start coming back to earth? Then on Tuesday, you've got the Spurs at the Wizards. The Spurs opened up 2015 with a win against Washington, as both teams are still trying to rise up in the ranks. Then you've also got the Cavs at the Suns. Cleveland barely has a winning record right now, and who knows where they'll be by the time this game is played. Plus, there's not much else on that night that looks like it'll be worth it. Then on Wednesday, you've got the Wizards at the Bulls. The Wizards, they continue a tough stretch of games. They're going up against the Bulls team that was able to beat Washington the first meeting of the season. And then you've also got the Clippers at the Blazers. Clippers won their first meeting against the Blazers, but as the season continues on, I find myself having less and less faith in the Clippers. Every time I watch them play, I believe in them a little bit less. And then Thursday, you've got the Thunder at the Rockets, and the first time they played was very early in the season, back in November. The Rockets won that game 69-65. Both of these teams look slightly different than they did back then. So, I'm guessing there's going to be a little bit more scoring in this one. Then on Friday, you've got the Hawks at Raptors. Atlanta has overtaken Toronto for first place in the East, but they have not won a head-to-head against them. So far, Toronto currently holds a 2-0 lead on the season series, but both of those wins came before DeRozan was injured. And then you've got the Warriors at Thunder, and unless they meet in the playoffs, this will be the last time these teams face off this year. Golden State currently holds a 3-0 season series lead against the Thunder, looking to complete the sweep. And then you've got the Blazers at the Spurs. Portland has controlled the series so far, and the Spurs, they really can't afford too many losses because right now they're only one game in front of that 8th seed right now. They are on the edge, which... as a Spurs fan, I'm not worried at all. But still, I'll start to get worried if they lose too many. So hopefully they can grab a win, and we're gonna have to win against the tougher teams. Well, that's it for this edition of NBA Weekly. Tune in next week for another on-new edition. But until then, this has been the Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Nathan Lyle. Have a good week.